Hi, my name is Maya and welcome to the episode 37 of the Mila's Tinks knitting podcast, where I share all my thoughts, process and other random stuff about all things fiber related, but mostly knitting. Today is the... I have no idea. 19th of November 2024 and I'm coming to you from the French-speaking part of Switzerland where I live with my gecko. Today's program I have a big finished object. Actually, I have a ton of finished objects. I don't even know how many. I think 4? Yeah, kind of. Let's say 3. 2 are almost the same, whatever. I have some finished objects. I have 2 works in progress. 3? I don't know. You will see when we get there. I have no acquisitions and I am gonna give a few podcast recommendations at the end of the video. And I think that's it. So let's get straight into the most beautiful elephant in the room ever, which is what I'm wearing. So, hi, I finally finished my Maxine Sweater. It is a test knit for Laura Penrose and I finished it in time. I knit it in 11 or 12 days, I think. So it was pretty fast, but it was an absolute joy. I enjoyed every single stitch and the result is beautiful. I really love it. The yarn I used is the main color, the burgundy one is Biche et Bûche Le Petit Lens Wool held double. I have 1.5 ball left, which is a lot. Pretty annoyed about that, but and I lengthened some part of the sweater, so yeah, I have way too much. This one is partial, I think it's like 30 grams. This one is a full 50 grams. So yeah, nothing special. I just have a lot of yarn left. And it's a fingering weight, but it's a pretty special fingering weight because the yardage is very, very generous. Where is it? It's 250 meters per 50 grams. So it's a light fingering because that's 500 meters per 100 grams. But it's very, very lofty. And held double, it's actually closer to a worsted weight. So I actually had to knit pretty tight to mid gauge in the stockinette sections. I knit tighter in the color work anyway, so that was fine, but in the stockinette section there are some places where my gauge is more like 18 stitches instead of 20, but I'll come back to that later because actually it serves me pretty well. Yeah, so I have this and I have used... I forgot to bring it. As contrast colors, I used a combination of unspun yarns, Nutiden. This one is the turquoise one that's going on everywhere. This colorway is Bitan, it's Nutiden by Onelok Air, and I also used the pop of orange here. I don't have any of that left, but that's Faveletica. And I used the third contrast color is the grey, is this one. This is Twini by Isea. And I have used a little bit less than 50 grams. And I wanted to mention that the yardage of this is actually shorter than this. But I had to hold this one triple to get the gauge instead of double. So just another proof, if you needed it, that sometimes yardage doesn't really give all the informations about the yarn, because even though this one is more generous, it's actually a lot thicker than this one. This one is 510 meters. No, it's not a lot thicker, it's the same, sorry, it's the same yardage for both, but I had to hold this one triple, whereas this one I had double to get the same gauge. But they have the same meterage. I have no idea why I say yardage. I think it's because it's just easier to say than meterage, but I talk in meters, so whatever. Just wanted to mention that because it was pretty weird. And I think I can maybe pair them together, even though this one is so much thinner gauge-wise. I don't know. I also have a random ball of this one that I bought, but it was too light for this sweater, so maybe I could use the other one. I don't know. I wanted to knit fingering weight shawl for a while, and since I have a lot of this one and I have quite a lot of contrasting yarn. Maybe I could do something. I don't know. It's just a plan. I need to have a plan for all my leftovers, otherwise it stresses me out. So as soon as I finish something, I need to find a plan. So my plan is to probably make a fingering weight shawl using those and the grey I also have in this base. So that's it for the yarns I use for the sweater, and I use the 4mm needles for everything, color work and stockinette. And I'm about to say some nonsense there because I hadn't measured my gauge correctly before filming, so let me correct myself before I even say the wrong stuff. My gauge in the color work is between 20 to 22 stitches by 10 centimeters, and the target gauge is 20 stitches. It just depends where I measure because this is a round yoke, so if I measure close from a increase row, then I have more stitches, and if I measure far away from an increase row, then I get closer from the target. So there's that. And for the stockinette portion, I use the same needles as I mentioned, and my gauge is a little bit too big sometimes. It's mainly between 18 and 20 stitches, so a little bit too big. And I thought on the sleeves it was bigger than on the body, but it's not. So I'm about to talk as if the sleeves are bigger than the body, but it's not the case. The gauge is roughly the same on the sleeves and the body, which is surprising because of what I'm about to say. Even though I was knitting the sleeves on small circulars, and I know for a fact that my gauge gets tighter when I knit on small circumference, but for some reason here it got looser. I don't know. Which is actually good because I need size 2. No, I need size 3 for the yoke, but I sized down to size 2 for the body and the sleeves. There are instructions in the pattern to knit a bigger yoke than the body and the sleeves, so I just followed the instructions, which were pretty easy and understandable, so everything went fine for that. But I wasn't sure I wanted to size down for the sleeves because I know my bust is small, but my sleeves, no, my arms are not necessarily small, but it would have been a little bit complicated to size down here and not here without having done the separation for sleeves yet. Yeah, it would have required a lot of thinking, and I didn't want it to think because I was stressed by the deadline and I needed to get this done, so I decided to just size down for the sleeves as well and find a solution if they ended up too small. But the solution ended up coming by itself because, as I mentioned, my gauge on my sleeves is a lot bigger, so my sleeves are actually size 3 even though I didn't do it on purpose. And yeah, but I followed the decreases for size 2, which is nice because my forearms are pretty big, so because my gauge is bigger I have enough room, which is, I think, is probably the first time in like years that I don't have to knit a sleeve, not twice, but 3 times. I always have to start over the sleeves because the decreases never work out. But here, since my gauge was too big, it's actually solved all my issues for me. So that's for the modifications I didn't really do on purpose. And I also added a few short rows on the back neck here. They are not supposed to be here. All the short rows are under the color work on the back, but I wanted to add a little bit more here. I also wanted to add a little bit more under the color work in the short rows that are already there, but I didn't, and I should have because it's okay, the fit is okay. I mean, it's looking great. I don't have a neck hump and my back neck is covered enough, but I would have preferred if it was like this. That would be perfect. I'm just missing 1 centimeter on the back, and then the front is, that would be perfect like this, but it's more like that, and that's a little bit too high. So I should have listened to my gut and added a little bit more short rows to the back here, but I didn't. But it's okay. It's still perfectly wearable, so it's fine, but yeah, just should have listened to myself. Anyway, but I also didn't really have the time to redo all the short rows because I would have had to recalculate all of them to change the distance between each short rows to add 2 pairs more, and I didn't have the time to do that, so I didn't. Anyway, another modification I did is I added color work to the before the cuffs and before the hem here. It's so cute. I'm just so happy. I think it elevates the whole thing so much. I already love the design just as is, but I think it's even cuter like that. No, I really like it. I just used the chart here, one of the three, and then I just used the color combination because this one ends with the gray, so I started with the gray and ended with the turquoise. I just thought it was the best combination to mirror the top. I'm super happy. What I did is I had to decrease, I think, 1 stitch on the sleeves and 2 stitches on the body to get to the correct stitch count so that I could have a full number of repeats on the whole circumference. Then I worked the chart and then I did 3 rows of stockinette. And then I switched to the smaller needles, did 1 row stockinette, and then I did the 2x2 ribbing. The first time I did it, I switched to the ribbing, I think one row after the color work, and it didn't look good. I took a picture, but basically the folds of the ribbing were right into the color work and it was just creasing like that and you couldn't really see the motif. It didn't look good at all, so I just added 3 more rows and I think it's perfect. I also added some length to sleeves. I think my row gauge is slightly too short, but the sleeve depth is fine, so I don't mind, but I think it's a little bit too short on the color work, so the length I lost here I had to add at the end. But I think I added like 5 centimeters, so that's a whole lot, but yeah, it works out. One thing I always do wrong with my sleeves is that when I try the sweater on, I'm standing up front like that, and then I look at where I want my sleeve to fall when I'm standing up front like this. So usually I want the sleeve to be right here on the top of my thumb, and then I measure this distance and then I knit that in my sweater. But then when I put the sweater on and I move around and the sleeve kind of shrinks along my sleeve, and then it starts to become a bracelet length like that because it's too short, because it's the correct length when I'm standing right, but then whenever I lift up my arms it just shrinks. So what I did is I took a sweater where I know I'm missing like this much to have the correct length whenever I'm moving around and doing this, and I took the measurements I wanted when I'm standing straight, and then I added the like this much more so that the sleeve is actually this long, but when I move around it's this one, which is what I want. So I'm super happy. It's just absolutely perfect. The most important change I made, which is also the less visible, is that I moved the sleeves 3 stitches forward because my cross back is 5 centimeters bigger than my cross front, and to accommodate for that I just moved the sleeves forward, and it's perfect. Because what always happens whenever I put on a sweater that's not like super oversized like this one, you know when you have a hoodie and you put a coat on top of the hoodie and you can feel the hoodie under the coat and it's pulling the fabric up, and you can feel there is something underneath the coat that's bothering you, and yeah, it's basically the bulk of the hoodie. It's like that all the time for me whenever I put anything on. I always feel like there is something pulling on the fabric here, and it's my back. It's not a hoodie, it's literally me. And yeah, it's a super annoying feeling, I hate it, so to avoid that on this sweater, I just move the sleeve forward and it solves everything. I don't have any tightness, I don't feel like the fabric is being pulled by my back, and I don't have weird excess fabric on the front. It always happens as well, I hate it. And here, it's landing fine. Oh, it's so perfect. Can you tell I'm excited? I think this is my favorite knit ever. And I don't say that a lot. I rarely say that, but I think this is my favorite thing I have ever knit. I mean, can we talk about the color selection? I think I've talked about that enough, and I think you can kind of tell I have a color scheme going on in my life. But I'm just so excited. I love magenta. and teal. I think it's gorgeous, and in this case it's more like turquoise and purpley burgundy, but alright, there is one last thing I didn't mention, is that I did the inside of the collar using cashmere, 100% cashmere, fingering weight, double, because this yarn, I'm super sensitive to wool, but this is not itchy, weirdly enough. It's super rough, like definitely. You would think, especially in the bowl, you would think you could never wear that next to skin. It feels super rough, but it's not itchy. So it's a case where roughness is not equal to itchiness, because some yarns can be smooth but still itchy, like mohair. If you're sensitive to mohair, it feels smooth to the touch but it's itchy. And the opposite can happen, like this one. It feels rough but it's not itchy. This is 100% lamb's wool, by the way. So I can definitely feel it. It's not smooth at all. It's not really soft to the touch, but I'm not bothered by it, which is pretty weird. I'm wearing a tank top underneath with just a like triangular shape like this. And what I can feel is actually the Nutiden, especially on my back. I can just feel it's a little bit itchy here. Because I have the Nutiden floats that are touching my skin, and this is itchy. It's rough. It's a little bit softer than this, but it's itchy. But my neck is still one of the most sensitive areas of my body. So even if this is not itchy, I didn't want to take the risk to have it this close to me, especially since it's a little bit too high here. So I used the cashmere and it's working perfectly. I absolutely cannot feel anything here. No prickle factor, nothing. So I'm glad I did that. The color is not exactly the same. It's a little bit more red. It's less purple, and you can actually see. I did go a little bit, I didn't do the fold exactly where the yarn switches because I didn't want to have like just the edge of the fold being itchy. So I purposefully went a little bit further so you can kind of see it. But I don't think you would have seen it if I hadn't told you, so I don't care. And I think that's all I wanted to say about this amazing thing. It's actually my first pattern by Laura Penrose, and it was great. We had the test copy, which doesn't have any like nice layout, so I have no idea if her patterns look nice when they are done. But it was still easy to follow as is. I just have one. I did spot a few mistakes and I mentioned them and they were corrected, but I did find. I'm gonna show you a picture of the back. The beginning of round of the chart is in the middle of not of a big star, but of the little guy here. So the beginning of the beginning of round is pretty obvious because it like cuts in the middle of a motif. So I just mentioned that it would make it a little bit less obvious and make the jog less visible if it was between the big star and the small star. But I don't think it's in the plan to change it, so I just wish I had done the change before because it's not... I don't think it's centered, or is it? I have no idea. Even if it's not centered, I don't think it's gonna be super noticeable. I have no idea. Maybe it is, I don't know. Yeah, but I just wish I had moved the beginning of round just 2 stitches further so that it wouldn't cut in the middle, because I really don't like how it looks from the back. It's the only remark I have for the pattern, otherwise, chef's kiss. Love it. So yeah, that was my test knit for Laura Penrose. Alright, so after I did the speed knitting through this guy, I left on holiday, a short weekend holiday trip. It was like 4 or 5 days, and I needed some super easy mindless knitting because we were on the go. We were going to the south of France near the Mont Ventoux with my boyfriend to go and climb. So it was hardcore climbing during the day, and then it was dark and it was night, and we were sleeping and just living in the van. And it's not like a high technology and modern van, it's a super old, like this one, it's a collection one. So not the best comfort. It's super cool and I love it, but it's not the most... There is no light inside, basically. I needed some super easy knitting and all my projects were pretty complicated, so what I did is I cast on using some yarns from a friend. They have a farm and they have some alpacas, and he gave me some yarn. I had a skein. He told me it was 200 grams, but I'm pretty sure it was 300. It was so heavy. And I had one skein of, I think it was 100 grams of black. And I've been wanting to use them for a while, and he was asking me every 2 months, hey, did you use the yarn? And I was like, no, I didn't. So I finally cast on, and I had a weird amount, as you can tell. I had 300 grams of the brown, which is pretty rough and itchy, and 100 grams of the black. So I wanted to have the black against me and the brown not against me, so I decided to go for brioche. And this is a cowl. So I used the black for one side, here, which is going to be the one I wear against my skin, and the brown is on the outside. And then I ran out of the black, but it doesn't matter because this bottom section is underneath the whatever sweater I'm gonna have, so it's not going to touch my skin directly. So I'm super happy about that. I just cast on a certain amount. I did the smallest swatch ever, just to know how many stitches I needed to cast on. And then I started knitting brioche in the round, and I did some shaping on the back, and I completely messed up. They are absolutely not symmetrical or anything, because I was on the go and I couldn't really think, and it was dark and I was tired and I just wanted to knit without thinking, so I completely messed up the creases. But it doesn't matter, it looks organic, and this yarn is not very... the spinning is pretty thick and thin, so this looks very not clean anyway. I mean, you can definitely tell. There are some parts where I have some big guys, and there are some parts where it's super thin, so I think it actually goes pretty well with the whole thing, that my increases are chaotic. So yeah, and then when I had kind of not a lot of black left, I switched to flat, and then I did decreases on the side here, and then I ran out of the black and I just continued with the brown until I have no stitches left, and that's it. So I'm just going to put it on. It's still pretty damp because I blocked it yesterday night, and alpaca takes ages to dry, but you can get the idea. Oh, it looks great and it's so cozy. It definitely grew a lot with blocking. It wasn't this big before, and it's also damp, so it's super heavy. I think it's going to fit a little bit more like that once it's dry, but yeah, for now it's a little bit slouchy. But yeah, this is how it looks like, and I think I can fold it like that. Oh yes, it looks so... oh, I love it. Yeah, I will have to wait until it dries because it's very sloppy for now. I did the shaping because I don't like cowls that are perfect tubes and then they just bleh on you, and it just completely useless because they don't really hug your face and it's not giving warmth. So that's why I did the shaping, but since it's damp, the shaping is not enough. Yeah, I'm just going to wait until it dries, and I hope the fit will be better then. I also should stop manipulating it this much because I'm completely stretching it out, so I just leave it be and stop moving it around. But yeah, I wanted to mention I completely self-drafted the pattern because I didn't want it to follow a pattern since it was a pretty chaotic context anyway. So I just did my own thing. However, the idea was sparked by the Brioche Bandana Cowl by Lavagna Patricella. She has one pattern for each weight of yarn, and it's just a tube of brioche with... it's basically the same as this, except you don't have the shaping at the back. So I just figured I was going to buy this pattern and then knit it, but then I forgot to buy it, and then we were on the road and I got lazy, so I just cast on without using the pattern, and I bought it afterwards. Because I just wanted to see how the decreases were done in the pattern, or where you switch from knitting it around to knitting flat. It was pure chaos. It was absolutely not helping, and nothing was making sense. So many instructions were like... To be honest, I really don't recommend the pattern. First, it's a paid for pattern and it's not even cheap, it's like $6 and there are 3 different patterns and the only difference is the stitch count. Otherwise it's the same because it's literally the same design but in fingering weight, DK weight and worsted weight. I think there is even one in bulky weight, so it's 4 patterns for $6 each and they are the same. So that's already annoying. So I was expecting the patterns to be super thorough and super hand-holding and super beginner friendly, especially since they are labeled and advertised as beginner friendly. But it's not even the case. Yeah, there was just it's literally 2 pages. And the first page is like abbreviations and the picture and just info on the pattern, and there is 1 page of instruction for $6 and I was like, what's this? And yeah, there were a lot of weird stuff, like the first decrease you do, it's designed for 2 colors, but the first decrease you do, you have one of the colors that like cutting into the front, and it's just the way the decreases are done. Then it doesn't happen anymore, but the first one is just not working. And then, yeah. Anyway, I didn't really like it, but I didn't really use it anyway, so whatever. I also found later that there was an update to the pattern and I was using the older version. So the new version is a little bit better, but there are still some stuff that are weird. Some mistakes have been solved, but there are still quite a lot left, and in a pattern that's just 1 page long, having a few mistakes, it's too much. I was wondering if I was the only one to struggle like that, so I went and checked the Ravelry project pages, and I'm not. A lot of people don't have any issues, but a lot of people have, so I guess it's not just me. Anyway, I used 4.5mm needles, and I'm happy with my result. I struggled quite a bit, I had to unravel quite a lot when I started the decreases, but now it's fine. And I have used this very precious yarn, very unique yarn, and I have 80 grams left that I don't know what to do with. But yeah, if you have an idea for 80 grams of alpaca, it's very, very thick and thin. I definitely had some places where it was like lace weight and some others where it was like bulky weight. But I think what I will do is another coaster thing in Jasmine stitch, like this little guy. I mean, this is not a coaster obviously, but using the same stitch doing a coaster, I think it could be pretty cute. Alright, next up I have 2 other finished objects. One you have already seen, but I blocked it in the meantime, so it's my pouches, my little dice pouches. So this one is super big, it wasn't on purpose, but yeah, as I mentioned, I blocked it, so it's a little bit less scrunched up, and it's supposed to be like a little pouch, like this. Oh, it's so super cute! And it's actually big enough to be like a project bag. I could fit a little ball of yarn inside and a little sock project. It's super big. So maybe not, because if I do that, since this is not fabric, I'm gonna probably lose my needle through it, so I'm probably not gonna use that as a project bag. But yeah, I have a cute pouch. I wanted to say little pouch, but it's not little, it's a big pouch. So I have this one that I blocked, and I have finished another one which is a lot smaller and a lot more suitable for the use I wanted, which is a dice pouch. And I forgot the dice again. So cute! So yeah, I have this, and I have started another one using the leftover yarns. I used about half of the yarn. The yarn I used is a leftover sock yarn. I had like 25 grams left. They are the same yarn. It's a Fröhlich Wolle self-striping thing. And I have used like 20 grams, 25 grams for this one. I used about 12 for this one, and I have, I think, 11 grams left. And I cast on another one. And it's in the works. It doesn't look like anything. And I'm using dip ends, even though I'm not a fan of knitting around sock circumference project using dip ends, because my small circular, short circular is used in another project. But yeah, just wanted to finish this yarn for once and not think about it anymore, because it has been stressing me out ever since I finished the sock I knit using this. So I wanted to be done. So I cast on this one, but I have actually my small circular that's in another project. And the other project is a sock, an actual sock, not a pouch that's the same size as a sock. So this yarn is lanyards, I think, super socks something. It's like a Greek mythology series, so you have a lot of Greek gods that have a colorway associated to them. This one is, how do you say Ares in Greek? I don't know, whatever. It's a self-striping and I don't have the tag, so I won't be able to show you, but I will probably put up an image on the screen so that you can see how it looks like. And I just have the beginning of a sock, because again, I was on holiday and I finished the cowl, so I needed another mindless project, and the other thing I was knitting on was at a pretty complex stage, so I just cast on this using the small circulars. And then I realized I wanted to finish the pouch, but then my needle was in this guy, so I'm knitting the pouch with the dip ends. I don't know why I started this before that. For this one, I cast on 68 stitches. No, that's not true. I thought I was using 2.25mm needles, because that's what I usually use for socks, and I thought I had took the correct needle with me, but those are knit on 2.5 because they are not socks, so I don't need the gauge. So I don't need the gauge to be super tight, so I use 2.5, and then I grabbed this needle to cast on the socks, forgetting that it was 2.5 and not 2.25, and I cast on 72 stitches, because those are not for me, they are for a climber friend. And then finally, after I finished the cuff, I look at my needle and was like, they are too big. So the socks were gonna be too big if I knit them on 2.5 with 72 stitches. So, and I didn't want it to start over the cuff, even though it took me like 40 minutes. So I did 4 decreases to get down to 68 stitches, which is fine for the size of feet I'm knitting for. But I just hope I'm going to remember that I need to first use 2.5mm for the second sock, that I need to cast on 72, and I need to decrease 4 stitches when I get to the stockinette. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna forget. So whenever I need the second sock, please remind me when I talk about it in the podcast. Ask me if I had if I haven't forgotten to cast on 72 and decrease 4. Please. You're probably going to remember that better than me. And I think I'm gonna have again 25 grams of this left, which means I'm gonna be able to make more pouches. And we are only 5 in my D&D party, because this is the dice we use for the playing D&D. And I think I'm gonna have too many pouches pretty soon. So I hope they will wanna get more than 1 pouch per person. Aren't they super cute? Alright, no, I forgot to tell one thing about the socks, which is I wanted to do the normal vanilla sock with a short row heel, but I recently acquired the vanilla Kite Heel sock by Celine Phaeton, because it looks amazing, this heel, and I have like weirdly shaped feet. I mean, my feet are... Can I even show you? I look like I have a tennis ball in place of the heel, because it's so big. Yeah, it's pretty, like, look, the arch is super tall on my feet, even though I don't have pretty big feet. So yeah, the fit of my socks is pretty difficult. So usually I do a short row heel and I do a gusset before and after, so that I add like 6 stitches to the short row heel so that it's deeper, so that it fits around my arch, but it's not enough, I still have feet issues. So I wanted to try out the Kite Heel on a sock for someone that doesn't have particularly large arches like me, just to try out the heel so that I know if I should modify it for me, and if I should, then how. That will be easier to do if I have done it once before. And there is also a, how do you call that, a knit along going on, so that's perfect. I'm probably gonna join that with my sock. So yeah, that's it this time. The next, my next work in progress is the pretty chaotic one I was mentioning before. It's a design of mine, and first designing is a bit more complicated than just following a pattern. And this one is pretty complicated, especially at the beginning, and I am at the beginning. So it's a shacket style jacket, knit using 2 strands of Nutiden held together. And my plan, I'm gonna put a picture of the drawing I did. My plan is to have some texture going on the top part of the shoulders, so not until the underarms, but just on the top part here, on both the front and the back. And I wanted to knit this texture bottom up so that you can do bind-offs for the shoulders and then seam the shoulder seam together. That's easier to do than to knit top down. And then I wanted to pick up the stitches from the cast on edge and then knit down. So what I did while I was on my little weekend trip holiday is I cast on the back piece and then I knit completely straight until I reached the back neck here. So imagine this is the back. It's almost the same color, so it's gonna be difficult to see. But yeah, I just knit straight in pattern until the bottom of the back, and then I put it on hold and I cast on the front. This one is steam blocked, so I can show you, but this one is not, so it's completely curling on itself. So I cast on the front, and then I knit straight until I reach the bottom of the front neck. I put it on hold, and then I cast on the other side. And I started knitting straight until I reached the same length as the other front. So I had a lot of rectangular pieces, and the only thing I had left to do was the complicated part of the shaping. And I'm doing the shaping in pattern, which is why it's super difficult. If it was just stockinette, I wouldn't really have any issue, but yeah, I wanted to do the shaping in pattern. And the stitch I'm using, the motif, is a slip stitch, a combination of slip stitches and cables, and I really love the effect. And it's not difficult, however, doing the bind off in the slip stitch pattern with the cables can be pretty tricky. So there is a way to do the cables and the bind off at the same time, but it's I mean, I would have done it if it was just for me, but since I'm writing up the pattern, I decided to go for the easy way. So the easy way is to decrease the slip stitches before you do the bind off row, and it's not particularly difficult, but it just requires me to write down everything I do for each row, and I didn't want to do that on holiday, so that's why I ended up knitting only rectangular pieces of fabric and then putting them on hold until I can do the actual shaping. Battery change, and again, sorry for the noise outside, it is still a construction site in front of my window, so again, we're gonna have the noise. I was saying that I stopped before the shaping part, and then what I did yesterday night was to do the shaping, and it was late, I was tired. I wanted to go to sleep, but I also really wanted to knit on this because the stitch pattern is super addictive. It's definitely a potato chippy kind of one. So I did the half of the shoulder, and then suddenly in the middle I forgot about my plan of decreasing the stitches on the row before you bind off, and I started doing the bind off with the cable stitches and the slip stitches, and it was an absolute mess. And I was writing down everything I was doing, and each row was like 5 lines of writing, and I just looked at it and I was like, this is too complicated. I need to stop. So I stopped, I went to sleep, and this morning I came back and I looked at my work and I was like, why did I just forget what I was doing in the middle of my work? So half of the shoulder was done using the decreases before binding off, and the second half of the shoulder wasn't, and it was just the whole cabling in all the directions. Yeah, so I did the second shoulder correctly, using the same technique throughout, and it was pretty easy. And then I went back to the first shoulder, ripped it off, and started over using the correct technique, and now I have easy shaped, I mean it's not as easy as just stockinette, of course, but yeah, it's not as complicated as you would think for the both shoulders. And then I have a nice deep back neck shaping here. And the reason I did it super deep is because you will probably see it better on the drawing, but I want to have the seam that's not on top of the shoulder. It's gonna be difficult to show because of the color of the seam, but I want the seam to be to the front. See? This is to the front. If I wanted it to be on top of the shoulders, it would be like this. But shacket, if you see the style of garments there is the seam that's on the front, like that. So I really wanted to have this feature in this one, so the back panel is actually longer, so that they both come down to the same part here, but they join to the front. And I was hoping I could join the shoulder so that I could actually have something to put on top of me before filming, but since I had to start over and write everything, it took a little bit more time, but yeah. It's looking great. I really like it. And I'm hoping to do the test call during the, I don't know, the second week of December, something like that. We shall see. But yeah, once I'm done with the complicated part of the whole shoulder thing, it's gonna be so fast and easy because the rest is just stockinette, and I'm so excited to design in stockinette. I've never done that. I mean, that's not true. The skirt was in stockinette, but there was the whole gaugeless thing with a lot of math involved, so I'm excited to actually design something that will have actual numbers and I can do all the shaping I want without having any like texture or patterning to constrict myself, so yeah. And I think that's it. I have talked about everything I wanted. So as I mentioned, I don't have any acquisitions. And there is one funny thing I did last week before going on vacations, which is doing the photo shoot with my friend, my photographer friend, Alexia, which I love. And we went in town to take some pictures of all the Halmoni Shawlette and Cowl and not Shawlette and Shawls. And actually it's her who had the idea of putting all my knitwear on top of, on statues instead of on myself. I mean, we also take pictures of my knitwear on me, but we wanted to find all the statues we could find in the city where we live, or even close from where we live, and just do like a series of artful, artsy pictures of statues wearing knitwear, and I really love the result. It looks so amazing. The first one we did a photo shoot like 2 months ago. We already found one statue and we did some pictures with it, and they already looked cool. But yeah, it's just so cool. I really love this concept. And of course, with the cowl, it was a little bit difficult because statues are pretty often bigger than humans and or in a weird position where you cannot really access the neck and put a cowl on it. So for the cowls, I couldn't really put the actual knit piece on the statue, so I'm just posing next to the statue. But I think the pictures with the lion is like so cool. I really love it. So yeah, shawls are definitely easier to style on statues, but yeah, I also had the cowls. So I haven't posted them on Instagram yet, so you are definitely seeing them in avant-première. Do you even say that in English? Première, I guess? So yeah, hope you enjoy. And we also took some pictures for the Halmoni Jacket, which is gonna be released a little bit later. But we had the idea, because I had 2 jackets, since it is inspired by a cardigan jacket knit by my grandmother. I still have the original jacket, but I have my version as well, so I have 2. So what we did is we found, it's a very famous statue in Lausanne, the city where I live, and it's called La Louve. It means the wolf, but in the feminine Like the wolf masculine is le loup, loup, and la louve is the feminine, so it's definitely a woman. I mean, I don't know her gender, but she definitely has the physical characteristics of a woman, I guess. And yeah, we wanted to put the jacket, the original version of the jacket on her, and then me posing exactly the same way as her, next to her, wearing the new version of the jacket, and I think the pictures are pretty cool. So yeah, and I showed the pictures to my testers, and now a lot of them are trying to find statues near them to do the finished object pictures of their test knit of the Halmoni Shawlette or Cowl on the statues, and I think it's just so funny. I love it so much. Yeah, so I'm super excited to see those pictures come up, and I did ask on Instagram if anyone has an idea for a hashtag name, because for now I've been using the hashtag statues wearing knitwear, but it's clear, but it's not funny, and it's a bit too long, so I just asked on Instagram if anyone had a better idea, and I'm asking here as well, if you have an idea for a hashtag that I could use for the whole statues wearing knitwear thing that we have going on with my photographer, and I hope a lot of people will jump on the train. Yeah, if you have an idea for a hashtag we could use, please drop it below. And I will select my favorite one from your suggestions, and I will gift a free copy of the pattern to the person or the persons who make the best proposition for now. I think for now my favorite is someone, I mean it's the only one, but it's already a lot better than the one I had, is Statues in Stitches, which I think sounds a lot better already, and it's a little bit shorter as well, and yeah, Statues in Stitches is fun to say. So yeah, for now it's this one, but if you have any other idea, please drop them below. I would like to know, and I don't know when I will pick the winner. I think before the release, obviously, and the release is going to be on the 26th of November, so next Tuesday, exactly in a week from now, actually. Yeah, I think I will choose the hashtag in the following days, so you need to be quick about that. So yeah, and again, the little housekeeping notes about the pattern release. It's a gaugeless one skein wonder, so you can use any 100-gram skein of yarn from fingering weight to worsted weight to beef, to knit both the shawlette or the cowl. And it's a 2-in-1 pattern, which means you just buy one and you get the two shawlette or the cowl pattern in one. And it's a charity release, which means all the proceeds from the sales during the first week of release are gonna be donated to two organizations that are close to me, local to me. And yeah, I think that's it. So I'll probably film another episode shortly after the release, but yeah, until then, that's the upcoming thing I have. And that's it for the knitting. I just had some podcast recommendations, because in the last episode I asked you guys to give me some recommendations, which you did, thank you. And a lot of them I was already watching. And the other I knew already, but I hadn't watched, so I am currently in the process of watching them. But I still wanted to give you some recommendations today. However, I have already recommended most of the smaller channels I watch, so I'm not going to recommend them in every episode I do. So I just went and found two smaller channels. By small I mean around 5,000 subscribers and less. So the first one is the Bluebird box. It's made by Anna, which is in the US, I forgot where, and she's super sweet. She's very knowledgeable, and she's a designer, and I just love watching what she does and the idea she has. She's a little bit different from the usual style and trendy things we see nowadays, so I really love watching her. The sad thing is that she hasn't put up a new podcast episode in a long time. However, I think she's featured in the latest Land magazine, if I'm not mistaken, I think. So she's still designing, but I guess she's pretty busy. So I hope she will put up new episodes in the future, but yeah. Until then, if you didn't know her, you can definitely watch the older videos. They are really lovely, and I love her. Another channel I like is by Emu. Her name is Marianne, and I just love her energy. She's super sweet and cute, and she's I just love watching her, that's all. And I love also the project she makes. Yeah, I just love her podcast. It's a pretty standard like knitting podcast. She's not a designer or anything, but I just love her vibe. So I just wanted to recommend her podcast. And a last recommendation, which is not knitting related, but it's a super big YouTube channel actually. But if there is only one person amongst you that didn't know about this channel, you need to go and watch it. It's gonna change your life, I promise. It's like the most beautiful videos I've ever seen. It's called this. I have no idea. It's Chinese, so I have no idea how you're supposed to say that. I mean, I know the phonetics, but I don't know the like accents and things you're supposed to say the word with, so I'm not going to try. It's written like this. And she's a woman, a Chinese woman, basically making stuff, crafting stuff. She's usually cooking, she's doing everything. Everything you can imagine, she has done it. And she was gone for like 3 years. She wasn't putting any new videos for a while. And I was always sometimes wondering, I hope she will come back. And she did. Last week she put up 3 new videos and they are beautiful. I really recommend. It's indescribable. I cannot describe it. It's beautiful, really. If you don't know her and if you haven't watched one of her videos, please go and do. It's amazing. So yeah, if you need some peace of mind, some beautiful thing to see, to inspire you, I recommend that one. Alright, I need to stop. This is getting really annoying, also for me, so I guess it's even worse for you. Next week, so I mentioned I have the pattern release for the Halmoni Shawlette and Cowl. Oh no, Shawlette and Cowl. And on Saturday I also have another climbing competition, although I'm not really sure I'm gonna go because I'm gonna be pretty busy with the pattern release, so I don't know if I have the time, but maybe, we'll see. That's it for me now, so I'm gonna leave you here. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for being here, thank you for all your nice comments as always, thank you for the support, thank you for subscribing, thank you for everything, thank you for existing. Anyway, I need to go now, I'm hungry. So yeah, I hope I will see you in the next one, and until then,